So when I was told by Ryan Coogler that Wakanda Forever was going to involve a great amount of swimming, I was extremely excited. I believe I'm a swimmer. You might have to ask others if they agree. But I've always loved the sport. I grew up with it. And the one thing I've never seen is a lot of BIPOC, people of color, on screen in water, navigating it. But as we started to train, I started to realize a lot of my castmates were learning from scratch. And it really got me invested in what is it about us and this sport, which is more than a sport. It's a life skill. It's the difference between life and death in many circumstances. And that led me to start learning more and more about this astounding icon sitting next to me, who I've admired for many years and definitely started to pay attention to once I saw her win the gold medal in the 100-meter freestyle in 2016 at Rio. And from then on, I was very interested in her and her voice. And she has really used it. And that is none other than Simone Manuel, who is an astounding athlete, but also someone who has brought astounding awareness to this issue. I wanted to sit down with you today because this issue has become something that I'm very aware of, only because it is life and death. Like a statistic that knocked me on my butt and really made me want to start investing time and energy into this is the fact that 5.5 times more likely a Black child between the ages of 5 and 19 is to drown than a white child. And that alone really, really floored me. But to start it off, you are this astounding multi-Olympic medalist winner. You are also a multiple NCAA champion, 30 under 30 Forbes Sports List, and of course the founder of the Simone Manuel Foundation, which we are going to get into a lot as well. It is so great to have you here today, Simone. Love Our Girls is all about celebrating women and girls who are leaders, who are groundbreaking, who have organizations that are making change in a world where women and girls are still navigating our true equity and freedoms. So it is so exciting to have, as we call it at Love Our Girls, a girl we love on deck.
Awesome.
What do you think baby Simone would have experienced if she had seen the sort of representation that is there of people of color in the water that Wakanda Forever presents?
I think baby Simone would have been so excited to see Wakanda Forever and all the beautiful Black bodies in bodies of water just swimming and being very powerful. Would have inspired her to not give up, to feel like she wasn't alone in the space and that she could be successful in the sport.
I'd love to learn about the navigation of this field to being at the very top of it as a Black woman in this world and in this country. Please let us know. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I am from Houston, Texas, and so it's really hot in the summers. And so my parents wanted my 2 older brothers and I to be able to go to the pools in the summer and cool off, to have fun in the Texas heat. They, in some way, knew the staggering statistics of Black children drowning and losing their life to swimming. And so they put us in swim lessons. So I was in swim lessons at the age of 4, really just with the opportunity to save my life. And I just love the water so much that the second day of swim lessons, I swam across the pool. And that kind of started my journey in the sport, just continuing to love the water and continue to improve and get better. And I definitely had my challenges along the way, being one of few in the sport and not feeling like I fit in, and looking around and seeing very few of us was really a lonely place. But my parents just continued to encourage me to do what I loved and push through those hard times. And it has allowed me to reach the highest levels in the sport, which has been amazing. But the goal that I have is to hopefully make the journey a little easier for the people that come behind me. I hope that I'm being a voice to others to be able to find their passion and love for the sport, but to stay in it. Because I know so many who decided to give up the sport because it was a lonely place.
I did love this one shot in Wakanda Forever, for instance, when Angela Bassett's character, Queen Ramonda, is saving Dominique's character and bringing her up through water and just navigating the water so skillfully to save another Black person's life. That to me was just so powerful, just thinking about that. Like, that's you. You're Queen Ramonda.
Aww.
You know what I'm saying? I grew up swimming. I grew up in Zimbabwe, which randomly does have a very strong swimming team, has a gold medalist who went to my high school, Kirsty Careyhill. But you know, it is something that you just kind of did as a kid. And my parents started my sister off when she was very young, when we were growing up in our early years in Iowa, and I jumped in the pool as a two-year-old and wanted to learn too, and they just let me keep going. And so I've always loved the water, and you know, stopped swimming when I was about 12. Competitively, I stopped because I got a perm. Which I no longer have, but as you can see, but I had one, and I had one for a long time, and I wanted to preserve it, and that was kind of what stopped me, you know, teenage stuff. But the interesting thing is, as an adult, when I go and swim, when I go on vacation, I love to be in the ocean. I love to snorkel. I find that very cleansing, very renewing to be in water. I try to swim sometimes as exercise. But what I've noticed lately, and just now, and even in August, I was in Jamaica with a very astoundingly successful, capable, really sophisticated Black woman. Once we got to the water, that all changed. And there were a couple close calls where the second one, where she thought she thought she was in trouble, but she really kind of wasn't. But the level of panic and that it induced was quite frightening. It really was like, okay, let me try to teach you, because this is a skill you need to have. As we're saying, it's more than a sport. And that just led me into the question around what is it with us as people of color around this issue. And I just wanted to share one swim story that I think sums it all up. My mother had a traumatic childhood experience around water where she almost drowned. And as a result, she never took us to any swimming pools, lakes, or other bodies of water. By the time I became an adult and wanted to join my friends on trips to places near the beach and other activities centered around water, I was ashamed that everyone could swim and I couldn't. Even now, I've been to pool parties where either all the Black people were swimming or none of the Black people were swimming. I often stay far from the water's edge because I don't want to get pushed in the pool in jest and have everyone realize I can't swim, as well as me potentially drowning. I have a lot of shame around not knowing how to swim, but now my mother's trauma feels like it's been passed down to me, and I feel too old to learn how to swim in a pool with a bunch of kids. So I'm just curious, have you been hearing themes like this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's generational, especially in our community. And so there are many grownups I've met who have told me that they don't know how to swim, but because of that, they've put their children into swim lessons. And then also there's many that are very similar to your story, that they're so afraid that they pass that fear down to their children.
Right.
I do think it's important to just remind people of the fact that swimming is a life-saving skill. So the earlier you learn, the better, but it's also never too late to learn how to swim.
Just to get into a couple of the stats, 79% of children in low-income families have little to no swim ability or access. And 64% of African-American children, little to no swimming. You know, it's so rooted in systemic racism. It's rooted in how neighborhoods were zoned, where pools were placed, where Black neighborhoods, low-income Black neighborhoods did not get pools, but low-income white neighborhoods did. And literally segregation of pools literally being done in northern states, starting in the 20s and the 30s, and how that then becomes something that goes continually, and how then the issues of the disconnection leads to the phobias, leads to all those issues. So I'm just curious, I want to go into what you are doing about this, because you are doing the life-saving work.
Yeah, so the Simone Manuel Foundation its mission is really to provide resources and education to BIPOC children and families to prepare them for swim readiness and swim safety. And so for me, it's about education, awareness, empowerment, and storytelling. And so I really want to have people understand why we don't swim and some of the challenges we face, but also provide them with access. And I think that telling my story hopefully allows people to understand why we don't swim. And I think that it's gonna hopefully save some lives.
So I just wanted to mention a quote that you had, and just wanted to hear more about your experience around the struggle of being an African-American woman in this field. As I kept going in the sport, I asked my mom why there weren't more African-American swimmers. So we did our research, learning about Olympic medalists Maritza McClendon and Cullen Jones and Sabir Muhammad and Byron Davis. Can you talk to me a little bit about that journey that you had to go on in order to claim your space in the sport?
Yeah, so I think I was about 11 or 12 years old. I came home from practice. I was just so frustrated. I think I had been struggling with it for a while, of just the experience of being at practice and being the only one in my group that was Black, or not feeling like I fit in, going to swim meets and being the only one in the region that I was swimming in, or one of few. And I asked my mom why there weren't many people that looked like me in the sport, why there weren't many Black people in the sport. And she didn't really know, or wasn't really able to articulate it in the manner that I probably needed it. So she was like, let's do our research. And we found the experiences of Black people in slavery, and how at one point we were excellent fishermen. Like, we would go dive for pearls, and then we were captured by the water. And then slavery, and a prominent way for us to escape was through the water. But often slave owners would say that there were monsters in the water, or drown us and instill fear in us. So we stopped learning how to swim, or even being in that space. And then you go to Jim Crow laws and segregation, and how we were kicked out of pools, or beaten and battered around pools, or Dorothy Dandridge dipping her toe in the pool and the pool being completely drained, are traumatic experiences for our community. And along with the lack of access, with pools being in the white neighborhoods. And just through that experience, I just learned that, one, we had fear instilled in us, and two, we weren't allowed to have access to that space. Right. And so that creates that generational fear, or that generational lack of desire to want to be in the swim space. Right. And I think that learning about that experience, or becoming more aware of what we had dealt with and what my ancestors had dealt with, gave me kind of this strength and this power to continue to go back to the pool, and just a new level of motivation that I have this opportunity and this right to be able to swim. I think that it allowed me to understand that my ancestors weren't really given the opportunity to be able to swim, but I am allowed the opportunity to be able to swim, and I'm not going to let my loneliness keep me from progressing in the sport. And so it allowed me to have kind of this newfound perspective of the fact that I get to do this, and hopefully I can, help other people along the way through my experience. Because I think it is difficult to kind of hear about that and see that, but it was really helpful for me to understand that I have an opportunity to be in this space, so I'm going to take up space.
That's incredible. That ownership, that history, understanding where we're from, understanding the barriers we must break, understanding the trauma that has disconnected us from our greatness, reclaiming it and not allowing the trauma to continue its cycle.
Yes.
And then excelling to the extent that you have. I mean, that's everything.
That really has been my journey. I know that it's bigger than me. I know that there were people before me that didn't have that opportunity, and the goal is to honor them, but also help the people coming behind me. I want the sport to be more than just 1% Black swimmers. And so the more awareness we have, and the more examples we see of Black people in the sport of swimming, I think that it's gonna allow the sport to grow, and we're gonna see more representation. We're gonna see more than just one Black person on the podium. I hope that we can see more than that. And when you have a community surrounded around this conversation and awareness and education, it's a really powerful thing to help save lives.
I'm all in. I got very excited about the fact that there was going to be some representation in the film, and then of course learning more about you has been just amazing. I am very invested now we have taken on a responsibility with the representation we brought with the film, and we have to see it through in terms of making sure that we do help bring more people to the sport, bring more children to the skill, address this statistic in a very active way. And thank you so much. Thank you for being here. You are such an icon to me. And
thank you.
yeah, I didn't grow up seeing a Black woman in your position, though I loved the sport. So now I get to see you coming up, doing your thing, killing it, already creating such a legacy. And all those young Black boys and girls who get to watch you, I'm so excited for them, because more Simones are coming.
Yes,
And
that's
that
the goal.
really excites me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.